ready to form Voltron. Activate interlock. Dinosaurs selected.
I got a story, I'ma tell it to the sound of the drum. There's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. You can't run, no, you can't run, no, you can't run. Sit down and stand up. Story, I'ma tell it to the sound of the drum. There's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. You can't run, no, you can't run, no, you can't run. Sit down and stand up. I got my mask. Come tell y'all this. It is the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast. Welcome and greetings. It is October 18th, 13,021. It is Awusi Da. And we are here back in action once again. I am Kojo Jojo, and this is my lovely wife, Awurama Asini.
I love the way you look at me.
Oh, I love the way you look at me. The way you put your eyeballs on my face. Yes, it's wonderful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Insight.
Oh, insight.
And Mara and Ma.
Oh, okay.
But I need the way you looking at me.
Oh, the Arit.
Arit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Ani is the mouth. Never mind.
No, Ani is another word for eye.
I thought it was mouth because never mind. Anyway.
Anyhow. So yeah, we have a lot of things we want to cover on today, but mainly you've been fired up lately, haven't you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, come on, sisters, ladies. Oh my goodness. We need to do better. We need to do better. I mean, granted, I get we are constantly bombarded.
How about a little context here? What's
Well, I was about to give the context. Can I just do the intro like I want to?
No.
Why
okay.
not?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
No. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
He about to get hurt, y'all. No, but there'll be a lot of people coming for black women, just coming for our necks, want this smoke, always telling us how we are acting and trying to put that into a box, trying to define who we are, and then we always are constantly looking for external validation to coincide with what we feel inside to try to kind of make us feel a certain way that we just have to be structured a certain way. So, or that, our values are displaced. We often put value in how we look, how we could cook, how good we can make a man feel in the bedroom. If a man compliments, our physical aspects, we allow that to be our value, and that should not be the case. I just think we need to do better. Need to, start putting our values in a better place, in space, and learning how to value ourselves, so that when we do meet our compliments, we're not surprised by what he says. We're not taken aback. I'm like, oh, he thinks I'm this, or he really loves that, and having all these posts on social media that highlight our bodies, our physicals, what we could do, rather than who we are, what kind of purpose that we are living out. That's the most important. So I think if you value yourself first, a man will come and see that and value that. And that's really what I really want to get at. That's my whole point.
That's your whole point. Well, when you say value yourself, what aspect of self are you talking about? Because some people will say, well, my body is part of myself. My booty is part of myself. My physical attributes is part of myself. So what is this part of self that you're talking about putting emphasis on?
Well, I mean, granted, yes, the physical, your body, all that is part of yourself. But the big thing that I want to get at is who we are as women. We both have, as women, we have both a feminine and masculine side to us. But regardless of how those energies express themselves, we still are women. And we still are, as black women, examples, repositories, vessels of the great mother, Aminette, who is also in Yame, Wa, and Akan, or Kamosu in Igbo traditions. We are, she's Mawu and Fan. We are, as a woman, we are the example of who she is. She works with the great uh, supreme being, the male half, Nyame or Amen. He's Lisa. He is Chuku in different traditions. That's that side. But we are her reflection. And then through her, we're also the reflection of the great creatress who is Ra'et. There's not a Ra without a Ra'et. There's not an Amen without an Amenet. So I think we need to focus on that. If we focus on recognizing that we are physical embodiments, physical vessels, examples of the great goddess, Amenet, and the creatress, Ra'et, then everything that pours out of us will be something that would not only attract our compliment, but also attract the things that we are meant to have in our lives, a well-balanced life, a healthy life, be able to attract, the type of stability that we're really looking for and the value that we want to let out and let free. Okay.
That's really important when you put distinctions on who you're talking about. When you say Amenet and when you say Ra'et, when you talk about the creatress, when you talk about the great mother, because you have women who will say, they're like we talked to Brother Quasi about it earlier, and people are putting together events talking about, we're doing it for the goddess, the great goddess, and whatnot. But who are you talking about? Because if you're talking about ancestral religion, if you're talking about so-called Kemetic spirituality, well then you know that we're not monotheistic, we're polytheistic, and for every god there's a goddess, and vice versa. So to just make these kind of broad stroking ambiguous types of statements or types of titles for your events without saying specifically who we are evoking and who we are invoking, who we're setting this up for, then it kind of lets you know that people don't know what they're talking about. It lets you know that people don't know what direction they're actually going in.
And I will also say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll also say, even if you were to make an event and may not get into detail of who you're talking about, but once you get there, you give those people that content, you also need to recognize that we have to invoke and provoke these forces that govern creation. It's one thing to just talk about them, but it's another thing if you're looking to speak to them, communicate with them, for them to be able to tell you what is an expression of them. How are you acting in your life? How is your life showing their expression of you? It's nothing wrong with you being a beautiful woman. It's nothing wrong with you adorning yourself or not adorning yourself. It's not wrong with you wanting to take up arms or knowing different ways to protect your body in martial arts. There's nothing wrong with you being a healeress and knowing about roots and herbs. There's nothing wrong with all that. But if you don't have it in the proper context, if you don't know why or for what you're doing this for, then you're still maintaining the whole, people are just sailing without, like a ship without a sail. They're just going some direction. They don't know what direction, but just some direction.
Right. The force, the goddess or whatever deity we're speaking of, they determine how they will be represented.
Yeah.
Like you just made the analogy with the ship without the sail. It's the wind. It's the force in nature that determines the direction, and how you, with the wind, with the sail, determine
right.
How you're going to interact or interface with that force. But first, the force has to bring the action. The force has to bring the consciousness. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing that we have to be aware of when it comes to people talking about, I want to, get in line with this energy. I am an energy. I'm a spirit and a body and whatnot. We have to realize that these energies are conscious forces as well. They're not just sources of energy for you to tap into and tap out of when you need it. These are conscious living energies that we communicate with. And that's a very important detail that I think is left out a lot of, because we have to realize that these are all these forces are all the grandchildren of Amen Amenet. They're all the grandchildren of the Supreme Being, but they are the children of Ra and Ra'et. But being the grandchildren of Amen Amenet means that they are all formed of the great Ka and the great Ka'et. And what the great Ka and great Ka'et is, that is consciousness. So we have to realize that everything that is in existence, everything that was created from consciousness. So by virtue of that, all these deities, they are conscious energies. They aren't, like I said, they aren't simply energies to tap into and tap out of as you see fit. You have to interact with and communicate with and keep these relationships balanced and respectful, I guess you can say, in a sense.
Well, it's not just in a sense. When you respect something, that means you are looking into it, you are communicating with it, you're walking within the guidelines of what that thing is, that entity is, and being able to have a reverence for it. If you respect, for instance, let's say you respect a law, that means you follow that law. You try to stay in harmony with that law. It's the same thing for these deities, these forces that govern in nature. When you are respecting these forces, you are being in a way that they wish for you to express yourself. For instance, not only is Amenet the great grandmother, the part of the supreme being, she's a one half of a whole, and Ra'et, she's a great creatress who's one half of a whole. Each of us have smaller bodies within our heads. And I don't mean just our physical head, but our soul consciousness, where we could get that information from the divine consciousness, from the divine. So, for instance, for me, my name's Amma. So I am governed by Heteru when she exhibits a certain energy on Saturday, or Amenemida. With that being said, I have to be in constant communication with her. I mean, there's some things that I just naturally do that express who she is. But for me to truly stay in alignment and not constantly overstepping boundaries and having chaos in my life, I would have to continuously communicate with her, whether at my shrine, whether just saying a prayer and she and I talking as I go throughout my day, but in communication with her and how to express myself. And one of those ways that she expresses herself, at least for me, is the sensuality part. But I understand that being in balance and in law with her, I can't be out here just being, promiscuous. I can't be out here just showing my body off in a certain way. I can't be talking in a way that constantly garners a type of attention from other people, specifically males, because I don't deal with, and that's the other part, there's no dissexuality. So she is not going to be out here looking for other women to have, so-called sexual relations with. It's really on a male and female aspect. But anywho, I'm not going to be out here putting myself out there like that. That kind of stuff I will use when it comes to what she wants for me in my own relationship. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you got to be, as some women feel they have to be locked down and have their sexual force harnessed in the way that they did if they were in Christianity or in Islam. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there's just a certain way that you use that energy with her.
I think we have to be realistic when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to sensuality, because there was a time where, clothing, I'm not going to say it was scarce, but we didn't cover our bodies the way we cover them now.
That's true.
But also, when we were living in that time, we weren't perverts in that time. Perversion and hypersexuality were not a part of the culture, and the objectification of the female and the male body was not part of the culture. Only in this pseudo white disordered Achiwadefo culture is the body so much emphasis placed on the sexual parts and the sexual organs. That is not a part of our traditional culture. Yes, it's something obvious, and when it comes time to use these parts, we know how to use them. But that is not the part of the culture that is overemphasized like it is here in the so-called Americas, in this so-called white culture, where black women's bodies
are objectified.
That's the main objective. Never mind the black woman's mind, never mind the black woman's spirit, never mind the black woman's consciousness, never mind the black woman's allotted function that she was given by the great goddess and the great god to execute here on the planet. Those things not only being secondary, they're not even spoken of. And those aspects are primary aspects. So to go from those being primary aspects to not even spoken of, and then all this emphasis placed on the breast and the lips and the hips and the buttocks and the wop and everything else. This is constantly going to keep us out of balance. So I think what my point is, what I was getting at from the get-go, is that nobody's telling you to bind yourself up and not express yourself and express your beauty. What we're saying is you have to be realistic and realize that we are surrounded by people who are conditioned to be perverts.
Yes.
And if you are surrounded by people who are conditioned to be perverts, then you have to be a little bit more responsible with how you present yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't want to arouse perverts. You don't want to arouse people who have, rapey tendencies, because then you're putting yourself in danger. And we already know, unfortunately, when it comes to black males, you can't, black males, speaking to y'all specifically, you can't be the protector and the predator. You have to choose one or the other. Either you're going to be protecting black women, or you're going to treat them like they're your prey, which most of us have been doing for quite some time now. So we have to get out of this predatory type of mind state, type of operation, and we have to get into protecting black women so they can feel safe enough to express that beauty that is within them.
Right. And I know there's going to be some women out there like, oh, well, why should I have to always have to be thinking about the other person and dress a certain way? Just because how I dress doesn't mean that I'm sending out those signals. You're absolutely right. But because of the nature of the world that we live in, you have to be more mindful to protect yourself. I have been in situations where if I just took a little bit more conscientiousness in how I carried myself, how I looked, and the kind of people I was around, I may not have been in those situations. But because I didn't, I had to take on experience that could have been avoided. And I'm not trying to say, oh, we're going to blame the victim either. But what I am saying is ancestral culture and religion, whether you practice Ifa, Vodun, Nana Som, whatever it is, you have to take accountability for your part in something. Even if you weren't the one that caused it to happen, you still have a part that you still play. And that's the thing. This is no doing what I want without any accountability. No one's going to check me on this or that. No, you need to be checked. That's how we know what the boundaries are. That's how we know what kind of people we're dealing with. And when the people who feed into and totally eat up this Achawadafo culture of disorder and imbalance, they're going to be perverts. They're going to be rapists. They're going to be predatory. They're not going to respect a woman regardless if she showed her body or not. It doesn't matter if she had on a potato sackcloth. Mm-hmm. They still are going to want to take from her. Mm-hmm. You could do everything right and not be exuding that type of energy. But if they're perverted, they're going to want to try to take it. And I get that. I've been in those situations as well. But what I'm saying is I have to carry myself in a different manner to be a lot more conscientious. If I have a male out somewhere looking at me a certain way, I can't give him any type of play in any regard. Sometimes not even just telling him he's wrong. Or just being mindful if I'm in certain situations around certain people, having things on me that could protect myself. Just be mindful of how people move. That's part of the divine feminine is, being able to not just be a damsel in distress, but being able to protect yourself. Whether you have knowledge of martial arts or whether you know some things about herbs and what kind of things can subdue people, or you're just experimenting and just put anything in a syringe and carry that syringe out to protect yourself. Whatever it is, but being able to protect whatever you have. Not saying that you can't depend on a man, but the thing about male and female relationships is that they have to be balanced. It's not just depending on one to take care of the other and never have to worry about that stuff. No, you both are going to always have to worry about the same things, and how you address them. Well, that comes into play with your relationship, how you guys communicate that. But it's going to always be an ebb and flow, because just as there are great warriors, there are great warrioresses. Just as there are great generals who are male, who are very decisive and know how to win battles, there are women that know how to do the same thing. It just expresses itself slightly different. We are hardwired a certain way as women, just as men are hardwired a certain way as men. But we both share a masculine and feminine principle. And when we come together, we are two halves that are now made whole. And how we come together determines our outcomes.
Yeah, it reminds me of the conversation we were having, trying to figure out as we're reading a publication called the Amada Nechi, which it describes divine love and law and divine hate, and how divine love is the expansive pole of divine order, and how divine hate is the contractive pole of divine order. And Ma'a and Ma'at, they are the expansive side. They are divine love and divine law. And Het Heru, not Het Heru, but Sekmat or Sechimat, and Herubehudet or Herakuti, they are the expansive pole. The contractive pole of divine order, being divine hate. And one of the things that we were trying to understand is why, in certain instances, Sechimat or Sekmet was referred to as Het Heru. And as most people know who are practicing any kind of African spirituality, the Het Heru is Oshun, the goddess of beauty, and
Erzuli.
Erzuli, the goddess of beauty and harmony and all these wonderful, colorful things, and music and rhythm and things like that. But the thing about it is, the reason why Sekhmet, who we know to be the lioness and the goddess of war, the reason why she was referred to as Het Heru is because in order to reinforce that beauty, or to ensure that beauty maintains its position in the world, sometimes you have to destroy things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things have to be destroyed, they have to be deconstructed, they have to be broken down so they can be restored, built back up in an orderly fashion, in a balanced and healthy and whole fashion. So that's a very important lesson for black men and black women to understand, is that everything can't always be just beautiful all the time. And if we want to maintain that beauty, sometimes there are things that are going to have to be destroyed. Sometimes things are going to have to get messy, going to have to get destructive. Sometimes you got to keep that knife in your book bag, and when somebody goes nuts, you got to put a couple slits in them.
Yeah, you got to check. You got to check people. That's just the thing.
That's really what it comes down to. So I think some people might be like, well, she just said that if a man was out of order, she wouldn't say nothing. That's not. She doesn't really mean that she wouldn't. The thing about it is, when you even approach people whose minds are in that place, you're opening yourself up to conversation, opening yourself up to an interaction that you don't want to have with this person. And rather than having the conversation with this person, you avoid this person until they put themselves in a position to be handled in the way they need to be handled. Because a lot of the situation, even when it comes down on a much larger scale, like what's going on between black folks and white folks now with this whole trying to put together this policy and introduce this policy to the Republicans and the Democrats for black people to get benefits or to get some kind of $500 billion bonus, whatever the case may be. It's a situation to where we are beyond conversation. Exactly. We are beyond negotiation. And when it comes to perverted males, how women deal with perverted males, it's like you don't even want to get into a conversation with these cats. If they put themselves in the position close enough to be harmed, then you should be ready to harm them and keep it moving. Right. Is what we're getting at here. Because some things just need to be destroyed. They don't need to be, interacted with in any other way.
Right. Some things you can't rationalize. Like I'm not saying you got to generalize every person that walks up to you or whatever, but if there's individuals that, constantly, or vibes don't lie, okay? Even if you don't know a person, if you get a certain vibe that your gut is like, oh no, this person's up to no good, then you can't want to rationalize with them. That's the same thing about what my husband was talking about with this plan. We're constantly rationalizing with non-black people about our inalienable rights, the rights of just human beings that are inherent. Why should we have to keep doing that shit?
The things that nobody can give you or take from you.
Exactly. Why is there needing to be a conversation to be had? It now comes to the point where, you know what, you're not listening. So let me give you a reason why you need to listen. And for some people, that needs to be they need to start breathing. But not everybody's built like that to take someone out fully like that. But you could at least be built to damage them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation where that is an aspect of reality that, due to the way we were conditioned in this country, we don't want to deal with. We don't want to approach things like that until you're talking about how we express our own self-hate.
Mm-hmm.
Because black folks is quick to be ready to do harm to other black folks.
Right.
But when you talk about these people who brought us over here to be pretty much animals, to be beasts of burden, and
Chattel.
to be chattel, and ever since that point, they've been doing everything in their power to suppress us, to repress us, and keep us subjugated. When we talk about bringing harm to these people, now we want to get all holy and get all turned the other cheek, and we're better people than that. We're not those kind of people. We're better than that. We're better than the violence and whatnot. But let it be cousin Tasha, or let it be Malik from down the street. Now we're ready to go kill one of these people, because that's how self-hate expresses itself.
And if not killed, we about to let them feel these hands.
Right,
About to lay
right.
some hands on and let them get some righteousness up in here.
Right. So we're always ready for violence when it comes to other black people. But
And it shouldn't be that way.
When it comes to these white folks, the ones who really deserve that energy, the ones who really deserve that hate, we reserve that for our own people. And that shit has to come to an end, like today.
Right.
It's misdirected anger.
It is. It's definitely displaced.
And they taught us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity taught us to do that. Growing up in a society where all the authority figures is white people taught us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that we've ever had in this country, we look at it as we received it due to their benevolence. They're the beneficent ones, and due to their kindness and their love for us and their pity on us, they were able to give us what they gave us, and they finally let us into their politics and their economies and their schools and their social systems, and we should be grateful and think things are getting better. No, things are not getting better.
But they were also the first ones to tell us something was wrong with us.
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing people don't ever think about. Don't stop to think about. How are they going to give us anything that they took from us in the first place?
Right.
They made concessions for people that they lifted up certain principles and certain ways in communities to live and perpetuate self. They took that and perverted that and then want to give us room. That, to me, all that doesn't make sense. How you going to tell me something's wrong with me and then now have me beg you to make room for me, and now you're going to make room for me and I'm going to look at you as some sort of savior.
Right. Trying to operate within a corrupt system, trying to deal with criminals. You're never going to get any type of balance when you're dealing with imbalanced people. You know what I'm saying? You can't take law to a criminal and expect the outcome to be something lawful. What you're going to get is more corruption. So it doesn't matter what type of plan you create and take to these criminals. Once they get it into their hands and they condition it, it's going to come out as something that's corrupt. That's what's going to happen. There's no other way to do that. You can't take something that's balanced and healthy and run it through a corrupt system, a corrupt matrix, and expect to get something back that's balanced and healthy. You got to be out of your mind to believe that to happen.
There's a lot of people out their mind. So yeah, we expressed that part. What else we got, baby? Because I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse with all of that.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what's going on right now. Those are the things that, to me, are at the forefront. That take precedent right now. You got a lot of the continual corruption of spirituality, the continual corruption of Kemetic practices, our ancestral religion, by people who at their core are still just capitalists.
Right.
People who still just want to make money, but don't really want to bring order back into the world. They want to stop at the point where they feel like they can be comfortable, where they feel like they can subsist, where they feel like they can have what they quote unquote deserve, and the world will continue to spin as the world spins, because ultimately everything else is out of their control. So what they do is they get into the culture and they tap into a market and they exploit that market. And what they're doing is, like I said, they're corrupting the practice, because ancestral religion and spirituality, it's not just about, you know, putting money in your bank account. It's about establishing order in your life and establishing order in your environment, in your space, in the world around you, in your home, in your community, and in the black nation in and of itself. But if we simply stop when at the point where we start generating income and start feeling like, okay, now we got some money, we can go and pretty much do what the white folks do now. We can, you know, we can buy the house, we can buy the car, we can take the trips and whatnot. We can dress a certain way, we can present our lives a certain way. We can get into what they call conspicuous consumption, where people can now see that we're doing well, and that's supposed to be that's supposed to reinforce the fact that our spirituality works, because now we got the money and we can show we can show how the spirituality has benefited us, has blessed. We've been blessed by the goddess because now we got some money and we can do this and that. But really, all you're doing is you're taking spirituality or you're taking capitalism and you're putting a spiritual face on it. The same way people have been taking politics and capitalism and putting a black face on it for all these years. Now these very same people with the very same makeup are taking capitalism or taking corruption and criminality, and they're putting a spiritual face on it. And this shit right here, that needs to come to an end, because now you got people who, you know, charging anywhere from $30 to $900 to go sit down with a person and get some pseudoscience, to get some pseudo spirituality.
It's even more than that.
From a so-called master teacher who couldn't tell you, who couldn't give you one method of how to bring order and balance into not only your life, but into the world around you by executing your divine function. You know what I'm saying? This is what spirituality is about. Ultimately, it's about executing your function and bringing order and balance to the world. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter how much money you make practicing spirituality. If you're still in a space where there's no order, if you're still in a space where there's no balance, if you're not actively bringing order and balance into the world, well, then all you're selling is wolf tickets. And we're tired of barking.
Wow. That was a lot right there.
Yeah, well.
No, I'm taking it in.
Things be on my mind.
I see.
And money is a resource.
Yes.
Money is definitely a tool in the system that we're working within. You know, I'm never going to say don't make money. Just go out there and live on the streets. I would never tell somebody to do that. Of course, you got to get your chips. Of course you do. If you want to have a roof over your head and some food in your belly, that's the way this system is constructed. You got to go and you got to make money. That is what it is. But it doesn't stop there. That isn't the ultimate goal for us. Practicing ancestral religion, practicing hoodoo, practicing voodoo, practicing Ife. You know, that's not where it stops for us.
Right. And you know, one thing about ancestral religion, whatever form that you do practice, is that it is all experiential, and it has to be within a context of the whole. And what I mean by that is, if you're making money now that you can be comfortable, now you can have more time to focus on your spirituality. Now you can have more time to help your children or your community, help be able to teach people what you're doing, help being able to, if you see a deficit in your community, help bring people together to now either raise funds, or you can donate some funds, or a sense of both, to be able to correct those deficits in the community.
The money needs to be reinvested in the takeover.
That's true.
That's really what it is. If you bringing in all this income and it's not being reinvested in the overthrow of white people, in the eradication of white people, and the overthrow of this white system, this white corrupt criminal system that we're working in, well then to hell with your money. I don't give a damn how much money you got, because the ultimate goal, there is no establishing order, there is no establishing balance in the world unless we rid ourselves of that force that is causing the imbalance in the disorder, in the corruption in the world. And that force is what we call disorder. And the personification of that force is white people. You know, disorder manifests itself in many different ways. You have a lot of diseases. You have a lot of mental, physical diseases that are manifestations of this force of disorder. But the personification, the embodiment of disorder, is white people. And that's why if you look at them as a group and their group behavior, they behave just like any other pathogen. They behave just like any virus that enters the body. They behave like any bacteria that enters the body. They want to colonize, they want to consume, they want to destroy, they want to take over as much of the body as they can with no respect or no regard to the harm they're causing.
And they don't want to be held accountable.
And they
That's
don't
the
want
other
to, and they do not want to be held accountable. So these people, that's why there is a clear relationship in all the different ways that disorder manifests itself, whether you're talking about white people, whether you're talking about viruses, whether you're talking about bacteria, they all behave the same way because they are all manifestations of the same force. And all too often, we want to talk about the racism, but don't want to neutralize the racist. We want to talk about the disparities, but don't want to neutralize the people who cause the disparities. We want to talk about the corruption, but not the people who bring the corruption into the world. And you're not going to solve any problems by dealing with the symptoms over and over and over and over again if you're not going to deal with the cause.
That was well put. I don't have anything to come out after that because that's true. And I mean, and that's what I mean by the wholeness of things. If you're going to take one small bite out of a pie, you eventually got to deal with the whole pie. So that's what I mean. You know, it can't just be taken out of context and one aspect is left away. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there who talk about group economics, talk about Black empowerment. You know, there are people who invest solely into the spiritual because they understand as above, so below. So what manifests physically happens in the spiritual realm first. I mean, granted, all these things may be important, but the challenge is not all of it's whole. We're still dealing with it just from a sense of, I feel, surface, and in a sense where we're just dealing with one part and not the whole. And granted, sometimes looking at the whole big picture can be overwhelming for some people, but we have to get used to looking at, you know, the whole in order to be able to make a difference. I mean, Achawatafo plan and look at the big picture day in and day out all the time. That's how they can have plans into projection years and years and decades ahead of time. And
they work together.
And that's the other thing.
They don't put all, they compartmentalize or whatever the term is. You know, they distribute the work the way it needs to be distributed. That's what we're talking about earlier. We're talking about function.
Right.
Everybody has their function. Everybody has a role to play. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed with any one aspect of this resolution. Play your part, but keep things in context is what we're talking about.
Right. And it's not going to just be you to solve. I mean, I get it. You know, once you get groups of Black people together, there are a lot of issues that come out because not everybody. I'm gonna be honest. Not everybody's built for the end result. Number one. Number two, there's a lot of people that are still maturing. So they have issues with maybe compartmentalizing what is necessary and what is unnecessary. And that gets in the way. And the other part of it is, you know, philosophy. You know, a lot of people have issues with coming together on something just because you may have different philosophies. And granted, I may not agree with everything somebody says or does, but at the end of the day, we both have to agree on that Black always everything. And that means no white people, period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Now, if you practice Ifa, if you practice Vodun, if you practice Hoodoo, and we have different methodologies of how we get to the same result, fine. I'm cool with that. But if the core things that are going to totally rock the boat are not on the same page, then we can't really deal with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what that is.
Yeah, that's a fact.
But to get back to my original point, you know, It is going to take a group of us to get to this, but if you start working on and honing your skill and what that one part is for you and seeing how it affects the whole, you will eventually draw yourself towards people, other people who see that big picture and add their pieces to it. So don't think that you have to do everything by yourself, but also don't be willing to wait on everybody to get it together either, because not everybody's going to walk that walk with you.
Not at all. Not at all. But it's all about philosophy. It's all about context. And like she was, alluding to a few moments ago, is that yeah, you can build your economic strength, you can build your political strength, but everything that we build, it can't be. We can't be establishing institutions for the sake of working with white people. We have to be establishing the institutions as opposition to white institutions. Black banks need to be opposition to white banks. Black manufacturing facilities need to be opposition to white manufacturing facilities. Black political parties need to be opposition to white political parties. There is no being a black Democrat. There is no being a black Republican. There is no having a black political party that's going to back a Democrat or a Republican. Everything that we establish has to be the opposition to, because we are a people who are at war. And there's no way you're going to win a war by trying to always establish institutions that are going to be in alignment with what white people already have constructed. The purpose of our institutions is to deconstruct the institutions that have been established to suppress us, have been established to subordinate us since we got to this country, even before we got to this country. White people have always understood that white power and black power cannot coexist side by side in the same space. There is no black power, and there is no equity between black power and white power. We can't. That world will never come into existence. It's one or the other. So either the whites are going to be powerful, or we're going to be powerful. And the only way we're going to be powerful is if we not only take them out of power, but take them out of existence. Because, for example, look at the black folks who came together and they bought all that land out somewhere. I think it might have been in Georgia. Was it in Georgia?
It's in Georgia.
They bought all that land out in Georgia, and then they got happy and celebrated and put it on the internet. And what happened after that? Immediate opposition from white people. This is going to be a black space. We're going to have black homes, black businesses. It's going to be black, black, black. And as soon as white folks heard that, oh, no, no, no. Because you got to understand, white folks feel like we are like we're the invaders, like we're the trespassers in their country. And due to civil rights and all that stuff, now they have been forced by the law to tolerate us in what they consider to be their space. So they'll be damned if we take what they consider to be their space and make it our own and tell them that they're not invited. They'll be damned if we do that. So everything that we do, not only do we have to keep it under wraps, but we have to be ready to protect it and defend it. And we got to always realize that we are at war with these people. And these people will always do everything in their power to bring us opposition, you know what I'm saying, to tear down what we try to build up, because they feel like ultimately all this is theirs. And if we're going to have anything, it's because they're going to allow it. And if we do anything that they don't allow and then tell them they're not invited, you better be ready. You better have your rifle by your door, because they coming to burn that shit down.
Yeah, I mean, and he basically said what I have to say. Something is your purpose if you're willing to die for it. And that's the bottom line. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to give everything for it. And, there's only two gates that we go through, the birth and death gate. Life is continuous. That is for us. Energy is not going to be destroyed. It just, it could be transmuted. It could be transformed into something different, but it's not going to be destroyed. And if we are part of creation, part of that great supreme being, the Amen, Amenet, the supreme being, divine God and divine goddess energy, the creator and creatress, Ra and Ra'et energy, then we live infinitely, and we have to remember that every incarnation that we have is a moment where we can right the wrong. Okay, so if you're not willing to give up your life for it, that's not your purpose.
And you got to keep it in context, because there's no giving up a life. We are an immortal people. We reincarnate lifetime after lifetime. And I'll put it to you like this: any African who is afraid of death has already died 10 million times in their heart and in their soul. So there is no death for black people. When we're talking about the birth gate and the death gate, we're talking about two realms of existence. We're talking about birth here in this realm, and going through the death gate, you go back to living in your essence as a spirit body, with your Ka and Ka'ets, and with your Ba and Ba'et, and living in the spiritual realm with the ancestresses and the ancestors.
Asamando.
So, and Asamando. And so it's different phases of existence, just like the earth here goes through different phases of existence. You know, the 4 seasons. You know, you can look at spring and summer as the birth gate, you know, living in lush environment, and then fall and winter as the death gate, where you go into hibernation, where you go into rest, and you get this period of coolness and calmness, and then to prepare you for the re-emergence.
Right, and then
that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. Don't come with it with these hell and heaven concepts. Okay,
No, that's out of the picture.
That's not even. We don't really have words for that.
Bullshit. That's a word for it.
No, I'm talking about words in ancient languages for that, because the reality of it is, you know, regardless of what gate you're in, what realm you're in, you still got work to do. You still working. You still trying to make things happen. Still trying to make those shifts to bring about, because the one thing that we often forget is that time is relative, and it's not linear when you're off this physical plane. It's not linear. So as things are moving, there's a lot of things that are going on and is happening, or has already happened, or is coming to pass. So just know that whatever realm that you're in, you still got work to do. But it still has to be part of your purpose and your function. And that's what we're getting at all in all. And then we have to get out of the need to always publicize everything we're doing, out the need to have some level of external validation for what we're doing. If you know that this is what you're meant to be doing, trust me, everything in your life will give you that affirmation that you needed. Okay, you don't necessarily need to publicize it. Yes, granted, if you need other people to come around with you, there may be, you know, you'll have it in a way that you can express that to others. But trust and believe, when it is something that is meant for you, there ain't nothing that's going to take that from you. Only you can give that up. Only you can decide not to protect it. Only you can decide, I'm not going to take that opportunity. So understand that you're already, you know, we already have a power, a tumi that we already carry. We just need to open up our minds and our spirits to realize this. And I'm not just saying it just to, all it takes is shifting your mindset, a different level of consciousness. No, it takes more than that. You actually got to put down ritual work with that, and do physical work with that, and be accountable to it all. Because if you're not going to be accountable, trust me, all that stuff will fall apart. Everything is a chain. It's just like your DNA. That chain has to be complete. The minute that it's not complete, that's when you start seeing dysfunctions and abnormalities. That's when you start seeing, you know, deterioration in your development. It's the same thing.
This has been the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast. October 18th, Awusida, the year 13,021. Check us out, Red Moon Purple Saturn on YouTube, Red Moon Purple Saturn on Facebook, Red Moon Purple Saturn on Instagram. And we got a few other works coming out. Be putting together the herucore.com. That's where we're going to be offering tutoring services to young black males between the ages of 10 and 17, tutoring in math. Also, the Aberima manhood training courses that we'll be offering for those young boys between the ages of 10 and 17. So if you have a young man in your life who is struggling with mathematics and struggling with the definition of and the expression of manhood and the appropriate behaviors of a young male who's going to one day be a man, not having the proper philosophy within his mind that would develop the appropriate behaviors for his life in times in this era we're living in, well then you want to get to the hairoocore.com, which will be established shortly. But anyhow, like I said, you can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And also we have the ritual retreat that we do every year, be coming up with Brother Kwesi, Brother Ojidafo Kwesi, which will be in Edisto Island in February. And we will be attending that. And also we will be doing a class there as far as the combination of the Aberima with the Obatan, the combination of the African man with the African woman, and how that relationship is complementary and how you make that work in today's world. So, this has been the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast, and we're going to say good night, Yabeshia Bio, and Ma'ashe.
Yabesha Ville, y'all.
Form Voltron. Activate Interlock. Dinosaur selected.
I got a story, I'ma tell it to the sound of the drum. There's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. You can't run, no, you can't run, no, you can't run. Sit down and stand up. Story, I'ma tell it to the sound of the drum. There's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. You can't run, no, you can't run, no, you can't run. Sit down and stand up.
I got my mask. Come tell y'all this.